So in session 11, we are going to see how we are going to manage our local storage. Now in local storage, we have hard disk. Now we will see how we are going to create and manage the partitions in our hard disk itself. So first, if I want to list the number of disks, I can give command fd space -l. So it will show you the list of hard disks along with the details of the disk. So it is showing you there are 2 disks available, disk DAV SDA and disk DAV SDB. That means I have connected 2 different hard disks in my system, where the one contains the operating system drives and other is completely blank now. Now every time whenever you see if it is SATA disk connected in the system, it will always be indicated as SDA, SDB and SDB, so on. Because SDA, that means SATA disk A, SATA disk B, and all the disks will be saved under /DAV, because as we know, DAV contains all the files of your devices. So your hard disk device files will also be stored in /DAV. And in generally when we used to hard your RD hard disk, so that time we used to have SDB as HDA, HDB, hard disk 1 and hard disk 2 and all. So here we have SDB, so there is space of 42.9 GB available over here. SDA has 2 different partition, SDA1 and SDA2, as the name of the partition will be defaultly created as SDA1, SDA2. As the partition continue, the name get created. So here in DB1, SDB, we don't have any partition, so we are going to create the partition in SDB. So first we will move into our hard disk. So for moving into hard disk, we will give command fd space /DAV /disk name. So here the disk name is SDB. So I'm going to create partition in SDB. As I'll hit enter, so it will show me a warning or information about the previous partition which we have in our system. So if you have a DOS partitions available, the old partitions available, so that will be get erased and the saved data will get lost. So if you want to create, you can create a new build DOS OS as well, DOS partition as well. So it won't recognize your old partition table. Now here if you press M, you will get the help, like what the parameters generally we can use, or what are the keys we can use for creating partition and deleting partition. You can see P for creating print table, M for again listing the menu, D for deleting a particular partition. Now if you want to write table and you want to save this particular partition to disk and you want to make the changes in exit, we will be using W. If you don't want to change, you will be using Q. So there are many these parameters we can use. So basically we are going to use N as we are going to create the partition, but before that we will list out the partition which are available. So for that we will be using P. P for print the partition table. So I'll press P and enter. In enter I can see there is no partition available right now, right? So I need to create a partition by pressing N. So we can add a partition by press N. So it's asking you with which partition you want to create, either primary partition or extended partition. So you can press P for extended, primary, and E for extended. So I'm going to create the partition. I'll hit enter. So it's asking me the partition number, which is the partition number default number you want. You can create 4 partition in a partition table. So which number you want? So I just defined 1. Now it is asking me the sectors. Now you can create the partition using the sectors and cylinders of your hard disk. So if you are technically aware of it, like how many sectors you require for creating 2 GB hard space or 20 GB space, you can define into it. If you don't know, you can directly hit enter and you can define into size in this particular option. So either you can define in sectors, but if you don't know about sectors, you can define in size as well. So even size you can define in KBs, MBs and your GBs. So here I'll be defining by GBs, but you need to define plus sign. Without plus, the partition won't be added. So plus, and then I'll define the size. So I am going to create a partition of 10 GB. So G should be capital as it is case sensitive. Now I can check this partition is created by pressing P. And I can see SDB1, the first partition has been created and the cylinder will be set automatically from 2048 to whatever the end cylinder it is. So it is showing you the size of the partition in bytes, and then the ID is nothing but your file system ID, which is by default provided by your system. Now, if you are going to create a new partition, I am going to create one more partition, that is your extended partition, by pressing E. Again, the default partition 2. I'll define the size of the partition as, we can give the larger size because we want to create logical partitions. So I'm going to define the size as 20 GB now. And we can see the partitions available, SDB1 and SDB2. So these are the two partitions, and you can see the ID. In ID it is 83 Linux, and for extended it is 5. So this is the default ID which generally we have as per the partition which we create. So you can list out that file system as well. So which ID you generally you get for different file system by having a parameter which we use in your fdisk. So that will look. Before that, we will create, and you can see the option has been changed because you can create only one extended partition. So when it is created, under that you can create only logical partition. So now you can see the changes, either you can create a primary or logical. So I'm going to create a logical partition. The partition, default partition will be 5. I have defined the size of this partition. So we have not defined the size, so automatically it is taken as 20 GB completely. So I'll delete the partition of 5. So we can delete the 5 partition, again we will recreate it so that we can have space in our extended partition. I'll press D and enter. So it will ask me which partition you need to create, 1, 2 or 5. So 5 and enter. So logical partition always will be named with 5 and so on. So I have deleted D5. Now I'll create a logical partition again, and now I'm going to define the size of the partition as plus, and then the size will be your, either I can define 10 GB. So out of 10 GB, I'm going to define 10 GB. I'll see these are the partitions, one primary, one extended, and one extended we have created one logical partition. Now we can save this into partition table by pressing W, and we can move out. And if you want to list this particular file system, so you can check by using L to list the partition types. Now 83.5 what it is. So it is a default value for different file systems. You can see 83 is for Linux. All the Linux by default standard partition will go into it. 5 will be extended. So when you create extended partition, automatically it will take the ID as 5 and partition type and extended. So you have many of it. All the particular system, file system has a different ID, the default ID, and it will be taking that ID again. So you can see this file system. Now we can save this partition table. We will move out of it. W and enter. So automatically you will move out of your fdisk. So you can see it is recreating the partition. It is syncing the disk. So automatically the disk is synced. Now I can check in fdisk space -L. Now you can see the partition of your SDB 1, 2 and 5 which is created in your SDB disk also, right? So you can move ahead. Now here also, if you want to check a partition only for SDB, so you can even check that. So it will not list your SDA, it will list only the SDB partitions. And these are the 3 partitions which we have created. Now generally, if suppose you can't find this particular partition, so you can even give command part probe. So what it happens, it probe the partitions which is being created in your operating system. Either you can use partex space -a/du/sdb. So this is the command generally which updates your kernel with the partition table which you have changed. So here by default is changed, so no need of it. Otherwise, if it is not updated, you can use it. Now we are going to see this partition graphically, what we have created in a texture mode. Now see how this partition looks. So for that, I'll move in utilities, and we have disk utility over here. I'll just click on disk utility, partitions, utilities and disks, and move into it. Now these are the multiple hard disks or devices which we have. So we are going to move on our 43 GB of hard disk. This is my old hard disk which has one partition, other as a LVM partition. Here this is a partition which I have created, one partition as a primary, other was extended partition. Into that I have created one logical, and there is a free space of 11 GB in our extended partition, and there is again one free space available where we can create a partition as well. So here extended contain one logical and free space, and again if I want to create more partition, I'll be able to create primary partition in my free space available out of my extended partition. Only the blue highlighted area will contain a logical partition. So if I want to create one more logical partition using graphical menu, you can even check over here the partition size, what it is required. So either you can modify from here directly, you can define the number, or there is a bar, you can use this bar to change the setting. So the partition size you require. Now you want to, whether you don't overwrite the data which you had or you want to overwrite the data, you can write it. Which are the file systems you require, so you can set any particular file system. Here we just latest one which you use, that is ext4. Now the partition name, if you want to define some label to the partition, you can even define it. So you can define the label name as well. Now I'm going to define a graphical partition. So this is a name defined on my partition, and you can create it. So after creating, it will ask you for the authentication, as we have logged in through test. So I need to define the authentication of my root and then authenticate. Now you can see there is a partition 6 has been created, right? There is again a free space available in your extended. Same way I can create a primary partition in the other space which is not in a group of your extended partition. We can even go for creating a partition. You can check here. One more thing, the partition phi is showing unknown, while the graphical partition which I have created is showing ext4, right? So why it is unknown? Partition phi is unknown. Partition phi is unknown because we have not formatted it. So for formatting it and assigning a file system to the partition, we need to give command mkfs. So I'll just check graphically as well. This unknown should be replaced by the file system. So for that, I'll give command mkfs